Jewish Research Center in Cleveland as a PhD aerospace engineer, and I was fired after started to question the strange-looking people I had to work with. They looked like corpses and Martians, but I didn't know they were all Jews, and I was fired. I am the only homeless NASA PhD in the country. The other PhDs were murdered by the evil, dirty Jews because human Gentiles are not allowed to live or work in America. I want to talk about the telepathic collectives and how they hunt, enslave, and eat people like they are pastrami, cornbread, or pork chops.
Dear Wayne, wow. That's all I can say is wow.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. You like listening to podcasts, don't you? Have you ever thought about starting a podcast of your own? If you're a hardcore podcast fan, you probably have, and you've probably got something great to share with the world. I'm Nathan Frazier, and I've created a free online podcasting course for people just like you. Pre-Launch Secrets gives you the top 5 secrets you need to know in order to launch a successful podcast. You'll learn how to create the core concept of your podcast, how to build a solid audience, and how to consistently generate great content for that audience. These are the secrets the pros use when coming up with ideas for their podcasts. And after this course, you'll have them all at your disposal. The course is free. It's taught by me. Enroll today. Go to podcastblastoff.com/course. That's podcastblastoff.com/course. Podcast Blastoff, the future of podcasting.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
The Rundown, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Check out therundownlive.com.
Attention host. The system microphone will be live in 3, 2, 1.
9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Check out therundownlive.com.
What up, guys? We are live here. It is Thursday, November 5th, live here on the Rundown Live, rundownlive.com. Mike Pachesney, Kristan Harris. We have a guest tonight, gonna be rejoining us, Kristan.
Yeah, Zoltan Istvan, Huffington Post contributor and transhumanist philosopher, will be joining us. He's running for president under the Transhumanist Party. I know he told us a little bit about that last time he was on the show, and it's always exciting to talk to somebody who thinks about advanced tech, artificial intelligence, and really what are the humans' jobs going to be in the future? What are we going to really amount to? Will we be in control of the robots, or will we become part of the robots ourselves?
Well, it's getting even deeper because with the political party of the Transhumanist Party, they want, their own Bill of Rights and interesting man merging with machine. We always talk about their rights. What about that?
The civil rights movement.
Right, so it's going to be interesting to talk some of the policies and things that we didn't get into the first time. Because, we scratched the surface of transhumanism and what it really meant with merging with machine. But, this is really happening. We talked to him a year ago, and just look at all the things that have happened in a year, Kristan. I mean, this is real.
Well, we talked a little bit last time. If you guys haven't checked out that episode, do check it out. It's available on the Rundown Live app. But one of the things we talked about was how people who become injured and maybe lose a limb or lose eyesight may get robotic eyes that see better than the eyes that they had. And as a result of these advancements, become almost superhuman.
Do you think Drano Lady's going to get transhumanist eyes someday?
I actually thought about that. I actually thought about that same thing on the way home today. I'm like, I wonder if Drano Lady is going to get robotic eyes in a few years, and then they're going to be like, whoa, trans-able can become superhuman transhumanist. you know, you'll always have that option. Who knows? Maybe somebody will try to regain her sight if she chooses to. But, you know, she seems happy to being blind. That was her goal. She was transabled. She should have been born blind. So Mike and I are trans financial, and we were born rich. Just haven't seen the money yet, right?
Yes. We were born wanting to be rich.
Right.
It seems like we need more money than we have.
Well, and that's true. It does seem like we have more money than we have. Yeah, we put a lot of work into this, so.
We need more money, Kristan. You see it.
Oh, I know. I heard you.
It's never enough. We always need more. So
you can never have enough money.
If you need money,
really.
you're simply trans financial.
Yep. If you need money, you're simply trans financial, and you deserve that money. You know.
I think that's a slightly different topic because that gets into believing what you are.
Well, like transgenderism. If your kid believes that they're hippopotamus or unicorn, it's your job as a parent to make them or to accept this and dress them as such. Otherwise, maybe CPS will take your children if your kid isn't dressed like a unicorn or he or she believes they are one. You know, it's
about what they believe, right? But I don't want to confuse reality with belief because transhuman isn't just a belief. I mean, this is literally man merging with machine. So, I mean, it's a little different. You know, we're talking about something that physically exists versus something that is about belief and perception.
Well, and that's just it. A child doesn't really know much about believing things. I'm sure there's a lot of things that kids believe that they're not allowed to do, like how much food they can get or candy, snacks, and just because your kid associates with one gender over another or thinks that they do doesn't mean necessarily that they're right. You know, obviously, if you think you're Optimus Prime, you're not going to go get robot arms, or are you now? Who knows?
I know.
So maybe you're trans robot.
I want a right
That's
robot
transhuman.
arm.
You want a right robot arm? Robot arm wrestling.
And then I could develop my left hand and my left arm. I need to have that, normal, and then I'll get a robotic right arm.
Well, Zoltan Istvan wants us to be able to live 10,000 years. That'll be interesting conversation with him. But like we talked about, I wanted to mention this real quick before we get into, the show. I wrote an article yesterday, and we talked about it briefly on the show, about police checking unlocked vehicles and then stealing your belongings and bringing them to the police department to remind you to lock up your cars. I guess the New Haven police have decided to terminate, or at least the word they used was postpone this, because they feel like they legally can, but they don't think it's such a good idea after getting feedback from all the local residents. Surprise you?
I did see that, and no, it doesn't surprise me because obviously people were upset about it. It went super viral. There's tons of stories about it, and they have no business going inside your personal property, whether you leave your doors unlocked or not. And I know there's been Supreme Court rulings where, if you leave your doors unlocked, they have probable cause, they can come inside, this and that. But the idea is, what becomes off limits at that point? What if you just are running inside and you forgot your key or something, and you left your laptop, and you run back out and it's gone? They're inconveniencing people.
Well, are they doing it on private property on top of it?
Right. What if you're in the Walmart parking lot, or some various establishment where police shouldn't even be going through your property? So it's a good thing that they're being held accountable and stopping the program, but it doesn't look like it's going away for sure. It's going to be something that's slowly rolled out, I believe, in a lot of different areas again, and maybe it won't be as publicized next time.
Well, definitely. And I think that people will always, I think with the internet, it's really hard to do something that's unpublicized. I'm sure it happens, but there's always somebody with a camera on a cell phone somewhere that's going to post something on Reddit or send in a news tip to somebody like the Rundown Live or InfoWars or Copblock or Mainstream Media Fox or a local affiliate. And it's up to those affiliates to expose this. I don't really know at what point does an affiliate say, hey, we're going to not talk about this because people are really upset about it, so you can go ahead and do it. At that point, I think they're part of the problem, which we've already seen.
Yeah, that's media in general. But I think, the major problem is, what were they doing with the property? We talked about that when we talked about it on the show the other day.
When the police station.
Well, not just that. We talked about asset forfeiture, remember? And the idea that, what if you never go pick up your computer, Kristan? Well, then what
it sits
happens?
there, and then I think they get to take it home after 6 months.
Right. Then it becomes little Johnny's Christmas present, or it gets sold in the police auction for the illegal drug war, or various other things that we just don't need happening right now. So it's a good thing that they're shutting this down. It's a bad thing that they're taking all your property anyway. They're taking your cars, houses. We talked about all that stuff. But also, 5th of November, things going on in D.C., London, across the world. Remember, 5th of November.
Million Man Mask March?
Yeah, Million Mask March is
Anonymous.
going on. And it doesn't look to be 1 million people, but it's good they're out there, First Amendment, letting people know that they're still around, and I think it's good. Although it's kind of interesting how they all wear the masks owned by Time Warner. We all understand. It's the point that, it's showing some kind of unity. It's a subculture, and it's good that they're, against the authority that's out there. The overwhelming tyranny, actually.
Haven't some cities actually banned people from wearing masks? Because they can't identify them?
I don't know if they're
during protests,
banned, but there are certain regulations that have been put in for protests and events, and I don't know how legal that is, Kristan. But
I don't think it's legal at all.
Apparently,
you should wear masks.
there are issues, but we got to talk about the site real quick because we got to bring Zoltan on in 2 minutes.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, guys, if you guys want to catch any old episode of The Rundown Live, grab your cell phone, grab your tablet, download the Rundown Live app. You can listen to our past episode with Zoltan Istvan. It was fascinating, very interesting stuff. Grab it now. It's available Google Play, Android, iTunes App Store, and Windows platform. You can get all our past episodes, email us straight from the app, access our Facebook, access our Twitter, and it's really easy to use. Another cool place to visit daily is therundownlive.com. You can actually listen to Mike and I and Zoltan live on the website, following therundownlive.com/live or from a link straight from our website. I want to say thank you to all the great people that make this happen. Chris Gio over there at Truth Frequency 90.7 FM, Eugene, Oregon 97.3, and we also have Wide Awake America, Right Talk USA, and we're also on YouTube, so check us out there, FPRN Radio. And again, thank you guys and the new listeners for tuning in to therundownlive.com. So if you guys have any show tips or guest requests, show tips at therundownlive.com. So, and we've been getting show tips. We always like interacting with you guys. It's always a fun show. Also, today we have a great guest on. He's been on Joe Rogan's show. He's been on InfoWars. And, of course, he's been on the little old Rundown Live here about a year ago. Huffington Post contributor and philosopher and presidential candidate Zoltan Istvan will be joining us here in a moment, if he has not joined us already. He talks about philosophy and the merge of man and machine. And it's always an interesting topic.
Hello.
Zoltan Istvan, Kristan T. Harris and Michael here with Rundown Live. How you doing?
Hello.
Yeah, we got you here, Zoltan.
Hey, you guys.
How you doing, Zoltan? Anymore. Are we coming in all right?
Oh, well.
Hello.
I think he's having audio issues.
Well, I'm here. I'm here, you guys. You there?
Oh, yeah, we got you now.
We didn't know if we had you there for a second, Zoltan. Thanks for joining us on the Rundown Live today. And I guess you've been on this tour you're running for the President of the United States under the Transhumanist Party. And I guess my first question to you would be, what defines you politically as a transhumanist?
Well, it's strange to be running for the presidency and to also be a transhumanist, because a transhumanist is someone who wants to, obviously use technology and science to upgrade the human body and upgrade the human experience. But the real issue with politics is that we also want to use basically all technology to solve the world's problems. And so that's really what defines my political candidacy, is that I believe technology can solve all the world's problems. So I think that's quite different than a lot of the other candidates in their approach.
Well, and not only that, you have some interesting initiatives here. I believe one of those is, would you like to live forever?
Well, yeah, of course. And, living forever, and the way we word that is a little bit funny. My main goal is that we're just trying to make it so that if you want to die, it's optional. Indefinite lifespans is probably the better way of saying it. But that said, my campaign tour bus is called the Immortality Bus. But yeah, we are trying to get people to live as long as they want to live through technology, by conquering death. And And I guess it's the media has largely been reporting that I'm the candidate that's promising immortality for better or worse.
Well, that's interesting. We hear Google coming out saying that you can live to be like 500 years old. How far off is this technology, and what's the definition? Are there people out there that believe if you can download your thoughts, which I've seen Natasha Vita Moore write about downloading thoughts in the computer onto the computer, is that considered a real version of you, or is that just empty hologram of yourself?
I think, look, if it's identical to you, then it's going to be you. And I know there's a lot of philosophical debate about whether it really is you, but if it's identical, then it is you. The real question is it okay to have two identical yous at once? And of course, they won't remain identical for very long. It only takes a few minutes before one of yourselves starts thinking quite differently. But I think anything that you upload into a machine, if it's exactly you, is going to be you.
It's definitely going to raise some ethical questions, I think, some moral issues, whether people are concerned about like overpopulation, things like this. What does that mean for a transhumanist when you have two individuals now on the planet instead of just one? Are they consuming the same amount of resources, or in the future that far is that even going to be necessary? Are they going to have to eat 3 times a day, things like that?
Be like a can of oil or something.
Yeah, no, of course. Generally speaking, if one is uploaded, it'll probably be a lot less demands on the Earth. So, in fact, some transhumanists, including myself, advocate for that being one method to return the Earth to its more pristine condition, is to actually upload a huge amount of the population. But at the same time, if people still remain, because I think a lot of people are not going to be happy with one physical body on Earth and one uploaded version of themselves. They'd probably freeze their physical body and just keep it there as a spare, and then go off in the uploaded version and explore all these wonderful realities and whatever it is. So I think ultimately it would probably be very helpful from an overpopulation point of view. But again, we're talking about something that's going to be happening in 25 to 35 years, and hopefully we'll have the means to feed ourselves more because of technology, or hopefully we'll have the means to try to fix a lot of the environmental problems that basically the human race has caused to the planet. So in 35 years, because we'll have such radical technologies, and I think the way we look at environmental issues now, it's because we don't have the ability to fix it, but hopefully we will in the next 20 years.
Well, we see the way technology is growing, so you would assume that, with the objective really being transhumanism, we hear Eric Schmidt and all these guys talking about it all the time, that this is really the agenda. This is what they're working on, every day right now. So you would think that we're going to start seeing this, and we do. We see the suits the military's using. We're starting to see aspects in healthcare.
Smart cars.
Well, and not just, technology, but literally the technology merging with man, and that's what we see a lot with the suits and the bionic arms, and we were joking about maybe even cameras for eyes. This is really the future, and it's coming right now.
Yeah, well, there's no question. I mean, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, people are going to be amazed at how quickly the merger of human beings into machines is. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to become, of course, machines in the next 10 years, but I think within 10 years, we're going to get very close to everyone sort of saying, wow, it's going to be better to have a robotic heart than a real heart, or wow, it's going to be better to have a robotic eye than at least one than a real eye. And already we are seeing some, blind patients have better telescopic vision or microscopic vision than you would have in a normal person. And that's just a matter of the machinery is better than the biology can come up with. And of course, that presents a whole bunch of challenges, because I think everyone wants the upgrades, but nobody wants to lose their sense of humanity. And of course, that's where the crux of the problem is.
Well, yeah. At what time or at what point when you start replacing body parts with machine parts do you lose your humanity, or what some people may even consider a soul?
Of course. And I mean, I myself, I'd believe that I would, if there was a better robotic arm out there right now, I would go and amputate my right arm and put on the robotic arm. It's not there yet, of course, maybe 10 or 15 years, but I believe I would do that. However, that, my wife is kind of a little upset with that. Well, she's like, well, I don't know if I want a cold arm in bed, or, it just feels kind of robotic. It's something that we're going to have to get used to. Hopefully it won't just be like a machine arm. It'll probably look just like flesh, and, maybe be as warm as flesh, or maybe even, it's not just going to be we're going to become machines. I think we're probably going to recreate what it means to be a human being, probably in the human form, at least for a long time coming, because I think mentally is where the real challenge is. We're just going to be weirded out by becoming so Terminator-like. And so, there'll be a lot of vanity surgeries and vanity upgrades that will help us still feel human while hopefully getting a lot of the benefits of the technology.
Now, I have to ask, is that part of the political campaign, just to get these ideas out there? Because I know you have a lot of interesting things on your platform, and, I guess I have to wonder, a transhumanist Bill of Rights, things like that. Is this just merely to get it out there so people are talking about this stuff?
Well, yes. So, I'm very interested in running for the presidency, but I don't believe that my 2016 run is my real run. It's kind of like setting a foundation for 2020 or 2024 or even later, because it's totally unrealistic to think a young guy can just come on into the sphere of politics and actually make a real run. It takes a lot more groundwork than that. It takes a lot more connections than that. But this turned out to be a great vehicle for popularizing transhumanism. And so far, it's been the campaign is just the publicity around it, publicity around the bus has been enormous. I know some people think it's maybe not good for the movement, and some people think that the bus is too weird. But the reality is that from a pure traffic or pure visibility point of view, it's just been home run after home run, because we're getting a message out that has never gotten out so far before. And generally speaking, that message is that, of techno-optimism, that technology is coming, and we ought to embrace it more. In fact, we ought to spend a lot more money on it, because it's going to hopefully end suffering and end death and end some of the things that I think a lot of people can get plagued with. I mean, it's going to end cancer. It's going to end heart disease, all these kinds of things, just given enough time.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned all that, Zoltan. Another aspect of it, I know I mentioned about downloading thoughts. How far are they away from you being able to actually program your mind? Let's say if you want to educate yourself and know how to do taekwondo, or have ultimately awesome shooting skills, or want to learn how to use a certain gun, or a certain type of education, like how to fly a helicopter. When will we be able to just download those thoughts into our brain and literally know them?
So, that field, despite it being so attractive and so Matrix-like, is still very far off. I think the uploading of the mind is somewhere between 30 years away, maybe 35 years away. Consider if everything goes smooth and we don't get in world wars, whatnot. But the actual idea of how we can teach ourselves, even once we're uploaded, that might take another few decades. But I've it's funny, because I have a 5-year-old daughter and an 18-month-old daughter, and I've told my wife that there's a strong chance that, just like them not driving, because it's unlikely either of my kids will ever have to drive, they'll have robot cars and driverless cars, that maybe learning Spanish and maybe learning piano and maybe learning Taekwondo will be something that can be uploaded already. And we do have the EEG technology, the mind headsets, all that stuff has become very fashionable in the last year or two. But frankly, it's pretty rudimentary in terms of being able to teach us anything. Right now, we're just able to kind of slightly manipulate our brain waves, and also have some very basic telepathic kind of thoughts where we could say hello, or play, take a photo, think of a photo on our phone, it takes it and then shoot it to Twitter or Facebook. We can do that. But there's a big difference between that and actually teaching someone, Mozart's Fifth Symphony.
It kind of makes me think of entry-level transhumanism, Zoltan.
Like 101.
Kind of like the political campaign. I know you're being realistic, and, who knows, maybe down the road this could be a viable thing. I mean, getting this injected into government is an interesting aspect, because I think this is going to come up, especially down the road. We see it now with gender roles, all this kind of thing. But when technology ends up merging with man, there's going to be a lot of questions that government is going to have to answer. And right now, it's not even talked about. And then also the aspect of changing certain things with government. I know you talked about changing the way we vote, things like that. There's a lot of positive things technology can do for government that they don't seem to implement right now.
Well, and this is one of the greatest and most disappointing things that has, happened in my campaign, is that when I originally kind of started the campaign, I was a little bit naive. I was pretty optimistic about how much change could happen. And I thought, everyone's going to be talking about designer babies. It's going to be part of the debates. Everyone's going to be talking about AI and how it could help or hurt the military. But nobody will touch these topics. I cannot believe that we've had designer baby issues actually occur in China just a few months ago, where they did do stuff with the genomes, and you don't have any of the major politicians in America or the candidates speaking about it. This is an issue that is no longer out there 5 years. This is an issue that is here. It's 3 months past now. And you would think that the major candidates would be speaking about it and trying to form some type of agenda or some type of idea around it, at least get some ideas out there to how to regulate it, if it needs to be regulated and whatnot. But they just won't touch it. And the real reason is because it's a political minefield. If you think abortion is a minefield, designer babies is going to be worse. It's like, how far do we go? Do we augment our intelligence? Do we change body parts? Do we do all these things? And so no politician wants to deal with it because they just want to talk about the easy issues, Social Security, taxes, things like that. And it's sad to me because they're missing the boat. Technology is coming too fast. And if we don't address it, if we don't talk about it now, and it doesn't matter how you talk about it, just needs to talk about it, then, we're going to get caught blindsided. And again, we'll be way behind the curve.
And I think that's what you're doing good. You're getting it out there now, and now 8 years, 12 years down the road, when this is being shoved in everyone's faces, I think that you're going to be the guy they look to. Like, Zoltan's been out there talking about this for 8 years already. So I think you're ahead of the curve, man.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And shouldn't parents be able to have designer babies if they so choose? What about people who can't have kids? It could be a wonderful solution for them.
Of course. I think the medical benefits of designer babies is really what is so important. For example, I have heart disease in my family. Everyone has had heart problems. And this is an easy way to potentially just weed out that gene and end heart disease. And it's not just that. I mean, whoever's lost someone to cancer, it's the same type of thing. So we have some huge medical benefits, and we can slowly make it so that you don't have to go through those things. You don't have to watch a child that you've just had die from leukemia or something like that. You would think that they would be spending more time discussing this. And yes, and I'm hopeful that this is what I'm saying when I do a presidential run again, maybe in 4, 8, 12 years, hopefully I'll have this kind of Bernie Sanders effect, which is, everyone's talking about it. Well, look at Bernie's history. He's been talking about this stuff for 20, 30 years. And hopefully there'll be a day when maybe people will look back and say, well, remember, Zolt was talking about that a long time ago too. And finally this stuff is here. And maybe that will be very helpful for my campaign.
And I was just going to say, not only the technology parts of it, but actually some good issues. You're talking about legalization. You're talking about real-time democracy, things that could really change the society that we live in for the better.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, I think, another thing that, most politicians are afraid of. And, I just read the other day that that the professor, Harvard professor Lessig, quit. He was running on the campaign finance reform. And that really upset me because he wasn't allowed into the debates. And I thought, there was a man who was trying to actually change campaign finance reform. And I am completely for changing campaign finance reform because the problem is that it's impossible for any third party candidate or anyone that's not within the major parties to actually even really have a chance of being elected. And frankly, that's so un-American. So we absolutely need to use these technologies to make our world better.
Okay, we're going to break here. Zoltan Istvan, therundownlive.com. We'll be back after the break. See you guys in 3 minutes.
The system microphone is now muted for break.
Frequency Radio is your
Zoltan,
number one
we got
source
3
for
minutes
news
here.
and information.
Hey, I wanted to ask you real quick, what are your thoughts that maybe the designer baby topic isn't being covered because it would run the vaccine business pretty much out of business if you don't have any diseases for them to treat.
Well, to ask me about that, I'm not a fan of big pharma.
Yeah,
I think there's a huge amount of I think we live in a Band-Aid culture. We live in a Band-Aid medical system, and instead of wiping out diseases, they just want to keep healthcare going because it's such a big part of the industry. So
maybe we'll bring you in after the break real quickly with that, and then we'll get into more of your campaign. It's very interesting, man. I'm real excited to have you on. It's always good to have you on.
Thanks so much. I'm sorry about those audio problems. Wasn't sure what happened, but I'm glad.
Yeah, it's probably me. It was fine. No, it was good. We're a mile a minute around here, so we're just throwing questions at you, man. This is the long segment. So just so you know, this is the longer segment.
No, this is great. Anything you can ask anything you want to, and I hopefully have a good answer.
All right, guys, I'm gonna pull it on the network. It's gonna be about a minute and a half.
Conspiracies of the elites, controversial science and research, and delving into the perspective.
I think it's good just to be open about this because it seems like it's a big secret. Even though there's so many individuals involved in developing all this stuff, it just doesn't seem like there's enough people talking about it. Almost like it's not real.
Above your head. This is a holographic sphere with the flower of life pattern infinitely expanding inwardly to infinity.
Mike, would you get robot arms if you broke your arms?
Featuring 8 of the world's most renowned sacred geometry and
I'm getting a robot arm for sure.
SCS is to embed sacred geometry art.
We could start the very first robot wars.
Think about how fast you can type up an article then. Well, what if you didn't even need a robot arm? You could just think it. Yeah, I mean,
with one of those.
That's the beauty of technology, right? You just you get rid of the tools and you make it even more streamlined.
I have a question. Do you still misspell words then if you think it?
On today to sacredgeometryshop.com and feel the vibration.
You think "and" does it still spell right?
All right, here we go, guys.
Saturday on Truth Frequency Radio.
Attention host. The system microphone will be live in 3, 2, 1.
One down. Mike P. Kriston H. The Rundown, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Check out therundownlive.com.
One down.
TheRundownLive.com. We're here with Zoltan Istvan. He's a Huffington Post contributor, philosopher, and presidential candidate for the Transhumanist Party. And we were talking a little bit on break, and I have to ask you, Zoltan, maybe this whole designer baby thing is really getting a pushback because it's probably not good for the vaccine industry, I would think. If you were born with no genetic defects, the vaccine industry would probably be out of business real quick, wouldn't it?
Well, that brings up some big questions. It's our healthcare system. Is it designed to band-aid us and just keep us sort of sick, but keep us alive, or are we actually out to eliminate all disease? The Transhumanist Party and my own candidacy, we want to take, for example, $1 billion and just wipe out disease after disease, and of course many billions of dollars if that's what it takes. I don't mind having $1 trillion war on death. That would be fantastic for me. So Is Big Pharma just encouraging or advocating for a Band-Aid kind of healthcare system? Probably to some degree, yes. And, I think that's part of because we live in a culture that may not have really realized how far technology and science can take us. And it can take us to a point when we eliminate all disease, when we eliminate at least most suffering, and we certainly eliminate, hopefully, death.
Well, and that would be interesting to live in a disease-free world, that's for sure. And then we could really get into real progressivism, which would be like colonizing other planets, and things that really are beneficial. If we're talking population issues, you can always have the option to go to the moon or Mars, right? Then we'll have a government there, hopefully. Not.
Of course. Well, the idea is that you want to keep the species evolving, so you do things like that. You do things like space exploration. You do things that are brand new. And of course, like we had talked earlier about, even with mind uploading, at some point, it's going to become incredible to be in a system that offers you, essentially total freedom to create whatever kind of reality you want. Like I often say, we have 5 senses right now, but maybe in a virtual world, we might be able to figure out how to have 20 or 30 or 100. So the opportunity, just because of technology and science evolving forward, is incredible and certainly going to give us a whole new range of experiences. It's all part of what is happening to our species. And I just wish that people would embrace it more instead of being kind of so afraid and just kind of wanting to go 9 to 5 and do their normal humdrum life. There's an incredible possibility. There are incredible possibilities out there for our species because of where technology is going to take us this century.
That's interesting. One of the policies you mentioned that you're running on is to create a government where all politicians' original professions are represented equally. What do you really mean by that?
Well, sure. What's happening right now when you look at the United States Congress, presidency, and the Supreme Court, you have about 40% of everyone is an attorney. And I just don't, when you look at population levels of attorneys across the country, they're only about 7 or 8% of the population. So why should we have a certain type of profession literally ruling over our country and dominating it? I just don't think that's fair. I would like to see plumbers. I would like to see nurses. I would like to see airline pilots. I would like to see a whole journalist. I would like to see a wide range of professions leading this country forward. I think that's much more democratic than to just have, almost the majority be, all attorneys. Attorneys
or bankers,
think are very,
for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing. It's just we need an even system that is more democratic in how it distributes the kind of governing of our nation. And that requires some type of rule or some type of mandate that says, hey, we already have too many attorneys. Sorry, if you're an attorney, you can't run. And I feel the same thing with women. I feel like we're still like 15% in the U.S. Congress, whatever, with women versus men. I do believe that we need to mandate something to have more women be a part of the government. If they're 50-50 in the population, or 51-49, it should be something more similar to that. And that's a way to create diversity. That's kind of what I'm talking about when I talk about a more firm democracy, something that really is representative of the people.
Well, those are interesting suggestions. Definitely, I think that there is a large majority of people that aren't really represented by our government. I think that if you just get rid of lobbyism in general, as at least big business lobbyism, that would help solve a lot of these issues as well, because you wouldn't have this big money supporting lawyers, bureaucrats, and bankers, and you'd have more normal people in there. You'd have the plumber Joe and car fixing car Steve, or whatever his name might be. So I think that's interesting.
And I couldn't agree with you more about the lobbyists. And one of the reasons that I don't take money at all for my presidential campaign, if you go on my website and you look at donations to Zoltan, it's crisscrossed out in red, and then it takes you to a page that says Zolt doesn't take money. And he doesn't take money because he really absolutely believes in campaign finance reform. It's pathetic how our entire government is run by lobbyists, and it's pathetic that that it says anyone can run for the presidency, but it's completely a joke. It's not true at all. There's really no way for anyone, a third-party candidate without being a gazillion dollars, to win. It's impossible. So we need reform on many, many different levels. It's not just lobbyists. It's not just the campaign finance. Through the entire system, you have to clean it up, sharpen it up, and make it so it's much more fair. And that's going to take a lot of hard work. I don't know if sadly, I just don't even know if that's possible. But there is so much to be done to make electing our officials that run the country a much better system.
Well, isn't government just way too big and out of control the way it is? I mean, we're just spread across the globe, and we have all these useless agencies. I heard somewhere that I believe almost 80% of welfare goes to overhead buildings and paying for jobs, as where it's not really being used to help the people. We have a prison system that's full of people, by the way, and it's ridiculous. We have 5% of the global population, almost 25% of the prison population here in the United States.
Yeah, well, don't get me going on the prison population. It's incredible. So I just wrote an article. I do support 100% the legalization of marijuana. In fact, I support the legalization of almost all drugs. And one of the reasons is because we're killing ourselves with spending so much money on prisons for nonviolent drug offenders. And I was just in Arkansas doing a story on the campaign tour bus with a gentleman who is, an advocate. Arkansas does not allow any medical marijuana. So if you're a cancer patient and you're about to die and all you want to do is smoke a joint in the last days of your life, you cannot do that. And so it's crazy. So, part of the Transhumanist Bill of Rights that we're delivering to Washington, D.C. is going to include some language that says, whenever you step in the way of someone's rights to do something, especially when it concerns their health, that needs to be illegal. So we need to create some type of mandate that just says you cannot get in the middle of people's health. If they want something and that's what they want, then and it's not hurting somebody else, then they just must be allowed to do that. So yeah, I mean, if we just got rid of some of these stupid drug laws, we'd empty a lot of our prisons, and we'd be able to spend that money on education. It would be a much better system.
Zoltan, that's what I wanted to ask you about. You talk about education directly. We're talking about cleaning up the system. Well, look at how corrupt education's became with college, and now the levels of payments you got to pay, hundreds of thousands of dollars to attend a state college. You want free education at every level, and I think that's a way to create fairness. If everyone is educated or has the ability to be educated equally, I think that would improve society greatly.
Well, we joke about YouTube College on the show all the time,
Yeah. Well, so we completely advocate for free college, and we also want to make sure everyone goes to college. And one of the reasons we want to do that is because we understand that robots are going to be taking most of the jobs here in the future. But we think that a well-educated populace is going to be a populace that's able to find a lot of useful things to do with their time and just maybe have fun, even if it's just cruising on, drinking a margarita in the beach in the Bahamas because the robots have taken all the jobs. That's fine. You might be reading, Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception on that beach. But the point is that we want to make education free and fun so that everyone wants to do it. And, when most people ask, where do you get that money from? Well, we'd like to get it from emptying the prisons. It's very simple. We spend 4 times the amount in this country on prisons than we do on education. And I can't think of a larger tragedy. That's crazy. So one of the ways we would be able to pay for everyone's college is just by saying, well, let's just empty the prisons of all the nonviolent offenders. And, voila, we have a huge amount of extra money to put a whole new generation through college, and so they don't come out with a ton of debt. I came out with a ton of debt. I know exactly what it's like, and I got to be honest, I'm still paying. I pay debt every day with my wife's, college debt. She has quite a lot, 6 figures worth of debt still.
And it's almost unfair. I mean, there's a lot of people that still can't afford that, and they get these loans and they pay them back the rest of their lives. They never earn what they were promised, so it becomes a burden on these people. So it's definitely something that I think would help. And yeah, people are going to ask, where do you get the money? Well, what about the military-industrial complex? What if you just cut the military budget in half? I mean, you know how much money that would create to...
We'll replace it with robots. That's what's going to happen. We're going to have robotic tanks and mech warrior type suits and Iron Man suits, and you're going to need less men to do the same job.
Well, our number one goal, when everyone asks me, what's the very first thing you do? What I say, well, I would take money from defense and money from bomb making and money from war and put it directly into science and health. And our main goal as a transhumanist party is, instead of a military industrial complex, we want an educational and a scientific industrial complex. And if America was serious about its citizenry and about taking care of itself, it could do that. It just needs to shift the jobs and the emphasis from the military into medicine, into science, and especially into education. If we did all that, we could become a truly 21st century society. And we can also, of course, continue to lead the world. Leading the world through military, frankly, that's kind of, that just sucks, to be honest with you. I want to lead the world through science and education.
Well, and that should be the goal we have. But you see these lobbyists who are really interested in their oil fields and, expanding the police state, which has become, how about the surveillance state and the whole thought crime that's behind it? They're leading towards Minority Report Orwellian type society. We really need people out there that really understand this technology. When you mentioned jobs, I think that jobs in 3D printing or understanding how viruses work, those things are going to be very detrimental to the transhumanist movement. Who's to say you don't get a virus if you're part robot or part machine?
Yeah, well, I mean, people often ask me, what's the number one job in the future? And I say, well, the number one job is security or cybersecurity. I mean, dealing with hacking and dealing with viruses and stuff like that is going to be some of the most important jobs we can all do. I've just been telling people that even Dick Cheney had a heart. It was giving a lecture 2 days ago in Toronto, and a lot of people don't realize that Dick Cheney, the former vice president, had a heart implant, like a pump that went to his heart. And he used to turn off the Wi-Fi as he would give speeches because he was worried about hacking. And this is the future where we're all going to have enough technology in our bodies that we're also going to worry. I have now a chip in my hand.
I saw that.
We have to be very careful because I'm not fond of a surveillance state. I'm not a big fan of too much government, of course. But at the same time, we're going to have to work out a solution where we can benefit from the technology without losing, without having it take over our lives, and especially without having somebody gain more power over us, like Big Brother or something like that. So it's a minefield out there, but discussion and talking about it and probably spending a lot less money on military and a lot more money on the technology itself is probably the best way to go about it.
Zoltan, I gotta ask, what's the chip do? What's it for?
Yeah, what's a cool thing about it?
No problem. It's a very rudimentary chip. It's an RFID NFC chip, which means essentially that it doesn't do as much as maybe the next generation, which should be here in about a few months coming. But right now, for example, you can, if you have the right software, you can start your car by waving your hand over the ignition. You can enter into security buildings, by just waving your hand. You have to do the software and the downloading and stuff like that. But it's not exactly where I want it. I'm going to have to get another one because what I really want is when I walk into a Starbucks, I wave my hand instead of a credit card, and it takes the payment from me. And I also want it to have. Right now, mine doesn't have it does, but I would have to kind of do all this programming with it. But I wanted to have all my health, like my medical records and stuff like that if I'm ever in a terrible car accident. And at some point in the future, hopefully it might have some GPS characteristics too, where maybe someone can find me, or you might have it in your child if she's going to be at a public school system or something like that. Now that gets kind of into your Orwellian worrying about surveillance issues, but I think the chips are going to be offering enough benefits, especially health benefits, as they monitor blood flow and temperature levels and stuff like that, that we're all probably going to be getting them within the next 10 years, or many of us. The real question again is, can we easily turn it off whenever we want? And is it actually useful enough to actually go through the procedure? The procedure I went through is literally 15 or 20 seconds, so it was very, very quick.
The bad thing the bad thing is we learned about cell phones, and those are still on even when they're off, so you never know about the damn chip, Zoltan.
Well, and the other thing is why don't they offer, let's say for somebody that doesn't want to inject it into their body, offer, let's say, a wristband that offers the RFID chip? Why would it need to be inside of your body, I guess?
Well, indeed, and I think one of the things I've been reading about is a patch. People just have a real quick patch that you have that's basically you can't even tell it's there, and you could just use it that same way, so you could take it off anytime you want. But yeah, I mean, there are all these worries. You're right. What if you want to turn off and it doesn't actually turn off? And stuff like that. But these are things that people are going to have to work out. And one of the main reasons I actually got the chip was because I was trying to grow our community of transhumanists, and I wanted to bond with the biohackers. And I felt it was kind of a symbolic gesture, because there always has been for some reason there has been some people being a little bit disgruntled between biohackers and transhumanists. But I love both fields. And so I felt like it was a good thing to do. And I had a great time. And in fact, on my tour, I've been stopping at a lot of biohackers and discussing some of the amazing work they're doing.
I've seen some of the interesting biohacking where they have devices almost like cell phones implanted in them. Some of those are pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, the one where I got my chip, they had amazing things where they have something that goes underneath the skin, right on top of your skull, and basically it means that you can play music directly through it, and the audio waves reverberate through your skull. So essentially, you get used to hearing music in a different way, but eventually it becomes just like you're hearing music. And you just got to train your brain to understand it again. And so that way you'd be able to always play music without having any earbuds. For example, right now I'm listening on my headset. So those are some of the benefits. And that's just, that's just a bunch of guys that are, putting this together, working out the best way to do it. So there's definitely some fascinating things out there happening.
I'm going to hack it. And I'm going to be like, Zoltan, this is God. I exist.
I'm like, oh no, what's happening?
I am real. I am disappointed in your mark of the beast and lop off your arm so you can become transabled. No, I'm just kidding. You can get that robotic arm.
Those are some of the things that one would worry about is actually the hacking. And, luckily with my little chip, it's so rudimentary that you just probably couldn't do anything with it. But, in the future, of course, these things are going to be very sophisticated, just like our cell phones. And that's going to, like I said, that's going to be the biggest industry. It's just people are going to talk about this day in and day out as both surveillance and also hacking issues.
Right. My only problem would be is if it was ever mandated. I think people should have a free choice. And then the other problem I have is I think that if these technologies are becoming available, which they are, it seems like the elite, the people that are able to afford these technologies are almost going to be able to hoard them, and it's not going to be freely available for everyone.
10,000 years of Rothschild,
Yeah, the good news, though, is that these technologies are incredibly small. So they just don't cost that much to produce. That's the good news. And so I'm a big fan of thinking that they're probably going to be a lot cheaper than you're used to in terms of like the distribution of through all class of society will be very quick. But you're right. The rich will get access to it first. They always have. And I'm hopeful that they will not hoard it or take it. As I've explained to people before, the Mark Zuckerbergs and the other, young entrepreneurs out there that are creating a lot of this technology that we all use, they're so visible publicly because of social media that if we feel they're doing something wrong, or if we feel like if I ever felt somebody was hoarding something like on Facebook, for example, I might just stop using Facebook. And that's a power we're always going to retain. So I'm more hopeful that the days of the robber barons of, the JP Morgans and the Chases and all the Rockefellers are gone. We have people like Bill Gates and the Google brothers who are much more transparent. I'm not saying they're perfect by any means, but they're certainly, it's hard to see them going against the democratic progress that we've made in the last, 20 or 30 years. I think technology is making democracy easier to get, and I think that's only going to continue.
Zoltan, I have to ask you, in your opinion, when are we going to see the first transhumanist athlete or like a transhumanist football game?
Oh man! So I was up speaking at this West conference in Toronto just 2 days ago. It's wearable entertainment and wearable tech, and it's fascinating because I tried some crazy stuff, some crazy apps and crazy different things, including virtual reality. But the idea is, eventually, probably in the next 10 to 15 years, you're going to see athletes that, as robotic limbs become better than real limbs, when does a pitcher say, well, I want to take off my right arm and put on a robotic arm and pitch faster balls than I've ever pitched? That's something that will probably start happening in 15 years. And the idea of steroids and some of the drug use that we're now coming up with, there will be competitions for that stuff. And it's not just because it's super cool. It's because a lot of that stuff's going to make a lot of money for companies and spectators and things like that. There's going to be whole new ways of experiencing sports. So I'm hopeful. And one of our 18 policies of our platform, the Transhumanist Party, is to try to create an international group that advocates for having a Transhumanist Olympics, where you would literally, all the sports would be almost like Formula One racing, but of the human body. And I'm also a big fan of knowing that the robotic heart's going to be here on the horizon soon. They already have it in France. And eventually you're going to be having, people that are running much faster because they can pump a lot more blood. Or you're going to have swimmers that wear exoskeleton suits. They will run on water. This isn't swimming anymore.
Or breathe underwater.
Yes, exactly. They already have the oxygen kind of capsules that you can literally filter your body with oxygen, so you don't need to breathe for upwards of, well, they're hoping it's going to be 30 minutes you won't need to breathe, but they were going to give them to people that have been, underwater that like kind of lost consciousness. So there's a whole bunch of different technologies that are going to change the way we view sports. And in fact, one of the great things I've been looking at is a lot of virtual reality is going to allow us to have immersive spectator kind of things that happen. So, for example, in a football game, you might be wearing a helmet that is tied to the helmet of the quarterback. So when he gets hit, you're going to feel getting hit. You're going to feel exactly what it's like. You're going to hear him grunting. You're going to feel the impact. This is the kind of future that we can look forward to. And like I said, they had this stuff at the conference. It's just a matter of implementing it through the system and making it commercially viable. So people are working on this stuff. I think the next 5, I'm not much of a sports fan, but in the next 5 to 15 years, I might become one because it's going to become so cool.
And then you have to wonder, too, comparing it to other forms of entertainment, music industry, Hollywood, how this kind of technology is slowly going to be implemented. You go to a movie theater, what kind of things could they do to merge the technology with humanity through that form of entertainment? So it's opening a lot of interesting doors. I kind of want to take it back here with my last question, Zoltan. You mentioned universal basic income, which I think is something that's going to happen in the future because we're just trending that direction. Jobs are going
Credits
away.
Or something.
What are your thoughts on the basic income?
Well, I support it. It's one of our main economic platforms of the party and my candidacy. And basically, look, there's no way to escape robots or software taking all the jobs if we allow it to continue. And my wife's a doctor. Even her job is going to go. Doesn't matter. She has 19 years of training and a 6 figures worth of college debt. Her job is going to go the way of the dinosaurs because a robot can do it better. All our jobs are going to go the way of the dinosaurs. So something has to keep people from lighting Molotov cocktails and throwing them at the rich people's houses. And that's a universal basic income where people no longer need to work. They can afford some type of luxury and some type of roof over their head and food. Of course, they can work on top of that if they want, if they can find it. But the bottom line is we're going to have to take that society. Now, I'm a libertarian mostly. It's not exactly the idea that I would advocate for in terms of, but it's the idea that makes sense. And because I try to be a pragmatic person, I'm a supporter of the universal basic income, knowing that at some point we'd just rather have that than people lighting Molotov cocktails on the streets and causing disruption to society. My main goal is to overcome death. So for me, keeping people happy and keeping the scientific community progressing towards that is really the most important goal. So if that means keeping people happy, giving them free education, and making their lives good, then I'm more than happy to do that.
Zoltan, we bombarded you with questions the entire show, and I really appreciate you giving us your best answers for everything. But
great to hear
here in the
from you,
last 2 minutes, how can people support you going into the future with the campaign? I know you're not doing the donation, so how can people help you get the word out and support you?
Well, you can join me on Twitter. That's one thing. Go to my website. It's zoltanistvan.com. And you can donate money to the Transhumanist Party. It's transhumanistparty.org. But I think, the best thing you can do is just share information about the campaign, and especially share information about our bus. We're driving this 40-foot bus, looks just like a coffin, across America. And it's wacky, it's weird, but it's a lot of fun. And frankly, if any of your viewers, listeners want to come and join us on the bus, we take a lot of passengers. Everyone has got to pay their expenses, but I provide the ride and be a part of the couple documentaries that are being made. So it's the bus tour is at immortality.bus.com. And so just share all our information. And we'd appreciate it. Just the more people that hear about transhumanism, I think the faster we're going to get to the future.
Zoltan, I have a feeling we're going to be talking to you in 4 years, maybe 8 years, and there's going to be a bigger issue surrounding you. I think people are going to be a lot more interested.
Definitely more interested. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I hope so. That would be a great honor if that happens. So I'm certainly aiming for that.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It's always been fun.
Good luck. Have you back soon. Yeah, we'll definitely get you back on.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care, Zoltan. Thanks again for joining the RundownLive.com. Zoltan Istvan, everyone, writer for the Huffington Post and philosopher, also running for president under the Transhumanist Party.
It's an interesting point of view, but you know what? He's right about where we're headed. It's going to be interesting, and we're just running out of time,
undoubtedly,
guys. So make sure you stay tuned. Truth Frequency Radio, RundownLive.com. Phoenix Rising's coming up next. I like the basic income. We've talked about that before. It's just a lot of the things you may not agree with, but this is the future we're
Well,
going
if
to
we
be faced
develop
with.
space jobs, we'd have more. We'd all be on little like Starship Enterprise.
I'm telling you, he's ahead of the curve. We may not agree with it, but he's telling us what's going to happen. So start learning about it now, guys. Rundown
Zoltan
Live.
Istvan. Yep.
Thank you for another great show. Please fill out your show description to have this show featured on the front page.
You make me feel
You are
so
now
special,
being disconnected.
TFR
I love
bot.
you, robot.
Thank you. Look at, we're already transhuman. We have a TFR bot. That's what
TFR
happened.
bot. You're right.
That's what we should start calling him, TFR bot.